I gotta tell you, it's so good to be back in Colorado. We were sitting out by the pool today. We're like, is there any better place than Colorado right now? Like, no, there's not. Because Arizona, where I'm living right now, is like 195 degrees. It's fabulous, and it's a dry heat. So's your oven. Anyway. So, you guys, I grew up here in Colorado, born and raised, and everything was kind of normal, right? And then when I was 18 months old, my mom noticed in the car that I was turning blue. Brought me to the hospital after several diagnoses of pneumonia or bronchitis. She was fed up, brought me to National Jewish. That's when they said, we've never done it this young. Your daughter is an asthmatic. And one thing I want you guys to know about me before we get started is that I don't do anything halfway. So not only am I an asthmatic, I'm a severe asthmatic. Not only severe, severe in all three types. And so exercise-induced, right, infection-induced whenever you get a cold, and allergy-induced. What am I allergic to? Anything that lives and breathes. Anything that never has once lived and breathed. And anything that can jump up on your table and start living and breathing. Some of the muffins in the coffee shop. Anyway, and I'm also allergic to chlorine. So of course, right, so of course you go, my daughter has exercise-induced asthma and is allergic to chlorine, let's make her a swimmer. Anyway. And everything was kind of normal in my life until it was first grade. And, you know, that's when you get to go on field trips. You get to go out to recess. But field trips, of course, were to the zoo, which I couldn't go to. So I, you know, didn't really get to do a lot of the things that my peers did. But Mom made my house the cool house, so it didn't matter. Because everyone came to my house. Because heaven forbid, I would go to a friend's house and they would have a dog, a cat, a goldfish. It would be all over. And then all of a sudden, one day, Timmy Harper, who was the love of my life, at 6, came walking towards me. And I was like, oh my God, he's gonna propose. It better be a big ring, small dress. That's what we're going for. And he got right in front of me and he said, Amy, and I said, yes, Timmy, why are you so weird? I said, I don't breathe. He said, we learned in Mrs. Barker's science class, you have to breathe to live, so like, what is your problem? I'm like, I don't breathe, like, I don't know. Went home and started crying. Mom didn't know what to do, so brought me to the doctor. And the doctor, of course, you know, went on his whole blah, 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 and then said, you need to exercise your lungs. And I raised my hand and said, how am I supposed to do that when I can't walk up and down the stairs by myself? So he said, water sports. I look back now and go, did you read my chart? Anyway. So, you know, I did swimming, I did diving, I did synchro. Synchro, I'm not graceful, didn't work. Diving, I'm afraid of heights and I'm not coordinated. But swimming was a match. Like, I jumped in the pool for the first swim practice and I fell in love. And I know that that sounds funny hearing, you know, from a 6-time gold medalist, because you're like, duh. It took me 6 years to finish one length of the pool. Like, I was that kid that would always take a couple strokes and then start gasping. But when I was 12, I finished my first length, and I jumped out of the pool, and I ran to my parents, and I said, Mom, Dad, guess what? Next time I'm gonna win. And my dad put his arm around me, he looked around, and he said, Amy, shh, someone's gonna hear you. Well, the next year I did just that. I was 13 and I won. And then after that, I had to try out for my high school swim team. Because you guys remember when you had to try out for things, like this is before everyone got an A, everyone got a trophy, everyone, right? And we all sucked on lead paint like it was going out of style. And we were all okay, right? Let me digress for a second. I was watching this whole thing. I was watching my nephew play baseball, right? And you know, he'd swing this, 3 outs. And I'm like, all right, hey, good job. And the parents all started looking at me weird, and I'm like, what? He did a good job, he's out. And they're like, no, he gets to swing until he misses, or until he hits it. And I'm like, awesome, go me. Anyway, annoying. Anyway, let's move on. So I tried out for my high school swim team, Cherry Creek High School. Anybody? No Cherry? Yeah, I know. I'm still nice. It's okay, don't worry about it. Reputation precedes me. But so I tried out, and they only took the top 28 swimmers, and I was the last person picked, but I was picked. And my coach said, listen, I'm not going to swim you a lot this year because you suck. But if you come to every practice and if you try really hard, I'll put you on a top relay team. Now this relay team had won states since basically the earth had cooled, so I was pretty stoked. I went to every practice, I tried as hard as I could, and the moment happened when I was on that relay team. And I was so nervous, I was getting ready for the relay and I was behind the blocks and I had the towel over my head and I was doing the, you know, I promise if I don't screw up, I will eat my broccoli. And I won't beat my sister up tonight. Tomorrow's a different story, but tonight I won't beat her up. And as I was doing that, the other 3 girls from my relay team walked in front of me. To this day, I don't know if they knew I was there. I would like to believe that they didn't know I was there. But what they said changed my life forever. And I know that that sounds dramatic, but it's absolutely true. It was the 80s, so kind of hang with me a little bit. Small babes. Oh my God. I know, like, any of the niggas, like, totally on our relay, like, gagging with a spoon, ass if. And they walked away to the mall or wherever we might be 80s. And I sat there and I was brokenhearted. Like, these were my teammates, and they thought I was so bad they didn't want to swim with me. And after I was sad, I kind of thought again, and I got over it, and I thought to myself, who are you to tell me what I can and can't do? You're not in my heart. You're not in my head. You have absolutely no idea about me. You've never even asked me one question about myself, but yet you're telling me I can't do something? Who are you? We went on and we won the relay. By the time I was a junior, I was breaking state records in everything I swam. By the time I was a senior, I had actually qualified for the Olympic trials in 1992. I went to those Olympic trials. I was swimming 2 events, the 100 butterfly. Whoever invented butterfly, I would like to find that person and kick them in the shit. I'm working hard in therapy to be able to do that. I'm getting very close. But I got 12th in the 100 butterfly, which is not bad considering I hate the stroke. The next event was the 50 free, and this is my baby. If you guys watch the Olympics, it's the splash and dash, like all guts, all glory. Whoever is like the biggest, the meanest, the strongest, the toughest, the nastiest will win. I wanted a chance to be able to make this Olympic team. Just a shot. So I had to qualify after the morning top 8, and I did that top 8. Now, when they start announcing you and you get behind the blocks, right, you see all the athletes doing this whole thing, right, shaking their legs out. Do you guys all know, by the way, why athletes all do this? A lot of people say, like, it's, you know, shaking your muscles out and stuff. Do you remember when you were a kid and you had to tinkle when you were nervous? And you would cross your legs and grab your crotch, right? You can't do that on national television. So this is the grown-up potty dance. Right? So now go back and rewatch the Olympics and you'll be like, honey, Michael Phelps has to tinkle. I used to say, like, Monday Night Football would look a little bit different, except for I married a football player, and I know that they don't do that, they actually just go. Mark Schlereth did not get the nickname Stink just for, you know, no reason. Anyway, okay, I digress. So they're doing this, and they start announcing, and in lane 1, this is what I heard. In lane 1 is Betty Sue Smith. She has 9 bajillion world records, 10,000 gold medals. She was on the cover of Vogue. Isn't she beautiful? Everyone clapped, and I went, oh, what the? By the time they got to the girl next to me, she was so good that at any point during the race, she wasn't going fast enough. She could jump on top of the water and run across it. And in lane 8, we really have to say, she won a blue ribbon when she was 13. Amy Van Dicker. Let me raise my hand. Well, after the race was done, I didn't know if I should be happy or sad. Happy, I had my best time. And to do that at Olympic trials is a pretty big deal. But sad, I missed the 1992 Olympics by 1/100th of a second. Heartbreaking. But I got out of the pool, I went up to my mom and dad, and I said, you know what, guys? I would have just swum the 50 free. In 96, I'm gonna go, and I'm gonna swim more than one event. My dad stood up on his chair, and at the 1992 Olympic trials, he yelled, did everyone hear that? My daughter's going to the 1996 Olympics. I put my arm around him, I looked around, and I said, Dad, shh, someone's gonna hear you. Well, I worked as hard as I could, and in 1996, I qualified for not just 1, not just 2, but 5 events. I wanted to feel like an Olympian. I never really had that moment where you wake up and you go, I am good. Never had that. And I kept asking people, when am I going to feel like I'm an Olympian? And a friend of mine said, when you went through the gates of the Olympic Village. But as we were doing that, we got stopped for people to check bombs on the bus, and I started complaining to the person behind me, and as I was complaining, we went through the gates, and I missed my moment. A couple days later, everyone was dressed in these really ugly outfits. This was before Ralph Lauren decided to get into the picture. Like, we just had 2 pieces of felt, and we, like, duct taped each other, and I asked Janet Evans where she was going, and Janet knows that I went to school on an athletic scholarship, not academic, so she knows to speak slower to me. She said, honey, we're going to the opening ceremonies, because the Olympics start tomorrow. Patting me on the head. I said, okay. Well, I went back to shave. That's what swimmers do, because I was swimming the very first event of the Olympics. And I turned on the TV, and what I heard, I'm going to tell you, when you have a moment that will change your life, do not have a sharp object at an ankle, which was pretty bony and bloody, as you guys know, right? Because NBC said, tomorrow Amy Van Dyken takes on the world in the 100-meter freestyle. Excuse me? Well, I went out and swam that first event, and I didn't know if I should be happy or sad, because I got 4th. I was just out of the medals, but I won a best time. And I got out, and I was notorious for having leg cramps. And of course, you guys know when you have leg cramps, the first thing you don't do is to sit down. First thing I did was I sat down. And NBC was trying to hurry and get me off the deck, because you guys will notice they're just the athletes and the officials. So they stand me up, and I'm 6 feet tall. And my legs gave out, and I went wham right on the pool deck. And everyone came running over. Like, there was worldwide TV cameras that were running over, and my massage therapist butt crack was on worldwide television, and I still owe him dinner for that, but that's okay. Afterwards, I went and I got dinner and I had my massage, and I was feeling okay about myself, but I was sad because I let down my country. Like, I kind of felt like a big, huge failure, right? Like, we're Americans. We expect gold medals, people. And I got 4th. But I went back to my room, and I was pretty stoked because all the coaches were in my room. And the head coach said, Amy, why don't you sit down? And I'm like, well, it is my room. Thank you. I think I might. So I sat down, and he said, you know, Amy, we really appreciate you, and you're a good teammate, and everyone loves you. Tonight was not your night, and we understand that. And we've got people that are going to take up the slack. So I'm wondering if you are more than welcome to stay here, but we can also get you a ticket back, and you can be home in your bed by tonight. And I thought, who are you to tell me what I can and can't do? And there's a reason that I'm there. And I said, I'm going to swim the event tomorrow, and if something happens, we'll talk again, but thank you so much. And can you please close the door and hand me a cookie on your way out? Thank you. Well, the next night I had to swim a relay, and I had to swim exactly the same event that I swam the night before and collapsed. Not only did we win the gold medal, not only did we break a world record, I went the fastest split in history. Thank you. The night after that was a 100 butterfly. I went out and swam it in the morning and felt pretty good about it. Like, I had a good swim. I was seated 2nd, so like, I'm probably going to get a medal. And I was thinking in my head, and I went and had lunch and my massage, and I went back to my room, and the coaches were there, and I was like, oh my God, what did I do now? And they said, Amy, we got the film of your race this morning. We really think that you can win this race, and blah, blah. And I started hearing the Snoopy character. And I'm like, aren't you guys the jerks that told me to go home 2 nights ago? Right, okay. I just didn't listen to them. And I decided I was going to do this on my own. And I went out and I swam that night, and I got to the halfway point, and every coach will tell you not to look around, and I looked around and I saw that I was in 4th, and I was thinking to myself, oh my gosh, 1 more spot and I get my own medal. Like, not just a relay medal, like an individual medal. Like, that is huge. So I started swimming. And I got to about 35 meters left to go, and the crowd was so loud. Mind you, we're in the United States. We're in Atlanta, so they're cheering for us, which is pretty awesome, because that rarely happens. And I started swimming, and not only could I hear them underwater, I could feel them underwater. It was a vibration. It was so loud. And I was like, wow, someone must be swimming really fast. I call this Angel. She's such a nice girl. She deserves to win. It's her last Olympics. Awesome. And I hit the wall and turned around and went, that's a good time. What does that mean? And then I heard the gold medal goes to Amy Van Dyken from the United States. Oh my God! When you have a good moment, like, make sure you practice it, because that was the shot on my Wheaties box. And everyone goes, can you sign this? And I'm like, oh, for the love of God. When you do something awesome, you should smile. The day after that was another relay. There's 2 things that can hurt you. One is that someone's forgotten their swimsuit. And I know that sounds ridiculous, but there's actually people down where the ready room is that we all got to see in these last Olympics with bags of swimsuits in all different shapes and sizes, because apparently someone has done that. And I know that someone may have done it recently, Michael Phelps. Not to name any names, but anyway, he's a good friend. I can make fun of him. It's okay. And another thing that can hurt you is if you have a rookie who is nervous, and we had that. She was a 14-year-old little girl. She used to carry a teddy bear around. Her name's Amanda Beard. No one knows her, never mind. I'm kidding. So we're in the ready room, and she turns to me, and I mean, we're like 30 minutes out, and she goes, Amy, I've never done a relay. I said, that's okay, Amanda, it's all, you know. She goes, no, I don't know how it works. You what? She's like, I don't know how to do a start. How do I? I'm like, oh my God, bless America. I said, okay, here's what we're gonna do. When you're on the block, I'm going to yell go, and when I do, I don't want you to think, I want you to just go. She said, okay. So she's on the block. I yelled go, she goed, then I goed, then we all goed, and our English definitely goed. And we ended up breaking the world record and getting the gold medal, which was pretty awesome. The day after that was the 50 free, my baby. And I just wanted a chance to win. And I knew I was going to. I got in the zone, and athletes will talk about the zone, and it's very hard to explain, but I've tried to do it over the years, and it feels like you're in a bubble, and that nothing can touch you, and it's very quiet, which is interesting because I listen to heavy metal music very loud. So for it to be quiet, that's a pretty big deal. And you're very calm and confident, and it's just very warm. It's warm. And it's awesome. Well, that night I went out, got behind the blocks, started doing the potty dance, and I had this girl from China who we'd been racing for years, and before this, you have to be in the ready room 30 minutes before a race, and I didn't know what to do because I didn't know why. I'm about ready to break your heart and soul out for a gold medal, so I turned my chair around to ask her, and I realized that I didn't speak Chinese. So I didn't want to be the jerk that goes, oh, never mind, and puts my chair back. So for a half an hour, I just sat there and I just stared at her. We got behind the blocks. Yes, I was staring at you. And we'd already done the stare down. We're behind the blocks and I'm potty dancing. And I turned and looked at her one more time, and she did something in all the years of competing she had never done. She looked down. And I knew I won. But I thought, let's give people a show here, shall we? I got on the blocks, the gun went off, and the last thing that went through my mind was, it's yours, go get it. At the halfway point, I always took a breath, not really because I needed to, just to see where I was. And as I did that, my friend from China took her breath at the same time, and we looked each other dead in the eyes. And the things that went through my head when I put my head back in the water, I shall not repeat, and thank God it was underwater, that nobody could hear it, but I kicked it into another gear. And I hit the wall and turned around and saw I had won. And I didn't know the ramifications of that. I saw my coach cry, which I wanted to make that man cry for years, and it felt so good. But out here in Colorado, there was he's still working, Ed Green. Anybody know Ed Green? See some nods, yes, Ed Green. So he said, Amy, we're going live in 30 seconds, can I get you live? I said, yeah, absolutely. And he said, he does this whole thing, and he goes, how did it feel to break the Olympic record? Well, my time broke the Olympic record, so I said things to all athletes. Well, it felt really good. I've been working on my start. I felt pretty bad. He's looking at me confused, and I'm like, did I just drop an F-bomb on my TV? He goes, no, Amy. Well, I didn't say it, I thought it. And he goes, no, Amy, you're the first and only American in any sport, summer or winter, to win 4 gold medals in the Olympics. And I looked dead in the camera and said, shut up! After that, I had to redeem myself. I went back and was training for 2000, and I did an Olympic lift, and I destroyed my shoulder. And I was told I wouldn't swim again. 18 months later, I was in a race. The start went off. I threw my arms forward. I heard a snap, crackle, and pop. And after that, it was another surgery. 6 months to the day of Olympic trials in 2000. And there was no way I could do it. But who are you to tell me what I can and can't do? I qualified for 3 events. I won 2 more gold medals. And as I stood there and they said, please rise for the playing of the national anthem of the United States of America, I thought of how many people were celebrating for something that I just did. Something that I worked my life for, you got to celebrate for. And that was so cool. I didn't know where to go from there. I had swum 8 races. My first race I got 4th, my last race I got 4th, and in the middle, okay. And I thought to myself, well, I'm gonna retire, and what do you do when you retire and you're a single woman living in Denver and you're a huge diehard Denver Bronco fan, right? Well, you go find one and you marry one because free tickets, hello. Even I'm smart enough to figure that one out. 2 Super Bowls, yay! And I did that. I married Dyken-Rouen, and he is my best friend. He is the love of my life, and I appreciated that man every single day that I woke up. It was great. I got back into radio, and I started doing like the morning shock jock stuff, like the, all right, we're gonna play Nirvana, caller 25. But I got tired of talking about the Kardashians and how big their butts were, and what I wanted to get back into sports. And so I had been doing sideline reporting for NFL on Fox. I was gonna do the Olympics for Fox. And they said, well, listen, I mean, Fox Sports Radio, there is a guy who needs a co-host. Let me warn you, his name is Rob Dibble. He won the World Series in 1991. They call him the Nasty Boy. Does anybody remember him? Yes, one of you. What he did was, when there was a guy who bunted in a very inappropriate situation, Rob decided he didn't like it, so his friend, it was his friend, was running down first base. Rob took the baseball and hit him in the back. This was my partner, who is now afraid of me. Rock on. We went on, and I was the only female co-host on Fox Sports Radio. I was the only female 2 years in a row that was on the Talkers Top 100 list. Rockin' and rollin', we were in over 400 markets. In the majority of those, we were top 20, and in a lot of them, we were top 10. We were living the dream, but it was time for a vacation. So my husband Tom and I decided to go back to Arizona. We had a cabin in the mountains, and it's a neighborhood where once you get there, you park your car and that's it. Everyone drives their golf carts, their ATVs, their motorcycles, their bicycles, their rollerblades, whatever. And that's what we did. June 6, 2014 was a day like every other day. I woke up, I had a gallon of coffee, took my dog for a walk on the golf course. I got screamed at, "You're not allowed to walk your dog on the golf course." And of course I said, "You're not allowed to play that crappy on the golf course. Run, run, run." Went and did CrossFit because I was a big CrossFitter. Of course I blew my shoulder out doing an Olympic lift. Why wouldn't I do CrossFit? Not for it. Anyway. We met the guy who owned the box, and his name was DJ, and he was a firefighter, and he was talking about how the firefighter games were going on that day, and why don't you come watch? And of course, you know how you do this. I was like, absolutely, we'll come watch. And in my head, I'm like, no way we are going to watch. We've got things to do, people to see. And it was time for dinner. And we were gonna go to a place that was literally around the corner. I mean, it was a quarter of a mile, and I know that because when I would run, I would always warm up for a quarter mile, so I would walk, and then I would start running there. And I'm 6 feet tall, but I insisted on wearing 5 to 6 inch stiletto platform heels. So you know girlfriend is not walking. Tom said, why don't we take the truck? And I said, honey, it is a beautiful night. Like, why don't you take your motorcycle? I'll take the ATV, it'll be perfect. And he said, fine, so we did. And we got there. And I sat down and we were having a great dinner, and I had trout with steamed broccoli. And why do I mention that? Because it is the most insignificant thing in the entire world, but I will never forget it. I do not remember what I had for dinner last night, but I will remember that meal forever. I remember standing up, I remember pushing in my chair, and that is where my memory ends. I will tell you from what people who saw it, from what Tom saw, kind of what happened. Tom was dillying around with his motorcycle. Normally he took off ahead of me, but for some reason this night he did not. And he said he looked up and saw me going. There was no screaming, there was no screeching, there was not even a brake light. And I went over a 6-foot embankment. I can guess what happened. I had changed my throttle and made it a little touchier because, of course, you know, I loved a tree rash, like that was my jam. And I was having a hard time with the emergency brake that week, like it wasn't popping right. So my guess is that I had the throttle down, the emergency brake went, and I couldn't let go. He went over and looked over and he saw that my back was visibly broken. And he got down there and saw I wasn't breathing. And he rolled me over and he lifted up my neck and I started convulsing and my eyes went 2 different directions. And he said this happened for probably 5 to 8 minutes, somewhere in there. And of course, medical was called and it took 40 minutes for them to get there. And when they did, my first responder happened to be a guy who owned a CrossFit box named DJ. They called Flight for Life. And my pilot, who I now know, was pregnant at the time, and her husband said she should have not landed there, but she did. They put me in. I do remember being above the clouds, waking up and screaming, please don't let me die, I'm not ready. And they said, more morphine, get her. And I woke up the next morning, and we were getting ready for surgery. And I was supposed to have surgery at 2 p.m., but I was leaking so much spinal fluid, they had to get me in there stat. One thing that you need to know also is that on the scene, they didn't care about my back. because my head injury was so severe. Every 30 seconds, I would sit up and look at my friend DJ and say, hey, I know you, we worked out together this morning. Same tone, same cadence. You guys know how it goes with head injuries. Got to the hospital and they cared about my back. And here's why. My doctor held up his cell phone with a picture and he said, Amy, you are not understanding what I'm saying. And he showed it to me. Now, I know what a vertebrae is supposed to look like. I know spinal column is supposed to be like this, and mine was like this. And this one, T12, was touching my aorta. He said to me, Amy, I am working in nanometers. I do not think you're gonna make it. And I need you to say goodbye to your husband now. And I thought back, of course in this moment, why wouldn't you think of this, to all the Lifetime television movies that I had seen. The husband loses the wife and he goes, I don't know if she wanted me to date again. You're my soulmate, but I can't because I don't know. Of course I think of that. And I thought, okay, I gotta tell him. So I said, babe, I love you and you are my dude, but if I'm not here, I want you to move on and I want you to date and I want you to marry somebody. A couple months later, when I had to rescind that offer, it got a little complicated. But we did it. Anyway. And he looked me in the eyes and he said something that saved my life. He said, if this is too much, you can give up. You can let go. And I pulled him closer and I said, honey, who are you to tell me what I can and can't do? We went into the operating room. You guys know how it goes. They were setting up. Everyone had their waders on. And then I saw a lineup of doctors and nurses, and they all had their igloo coolers. And of course, me on Dilaudid. By the way, I am very fun on Dilaudid, just letting you all know. I'm very good friends with my neurosurgeon. He agrees. Anyway, so I I get rolled in, and they're all there. And I said, oh, awesome, nice to see you as a BYOB. Yeah, high five. Did not realize until later that they were there because they really didn't think I was going to make it. And they were there to get my organs. Well, I came out of surgery about 8 hours later, and I was in ICU, and I remember it distinctly. I had a bunch of people in the room, and my neurosurgeon, Dr. Toomey Allen, looked at my chart, looked at the room, looked at his watch, like he thought it was a different day, and he goes, well, I'm looking for someone that just had spinal surgery. And I was like, Doc, that's me! He's like, oh my God, this is crazy. And people ask me, like, how did it feel when they told you you were paralyzed? If any of you have lost any feeling for any amount of time for whatever reason, be it that you slept on your arm too long and it's like beyond the point where it's asleep and you're like, ugh. Like right? And I knew in bed when I couldn't turn myself over and when I knew I didn't have to tinkle, when the hot doctor walked in and nothing. I knew. But I wasn't upset because I'm here. And I'm alive. And I wanted to make sure that I let everybody know that it's not that bad. Well, I went on and I said, in the hospital, I will walk out of here. Now, I didn't reach that goal, but I went home to Arizona and I've been at Barrows Neurological Center ever since then. 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, I go to PT for 2 hours of hop. That's why and we work as hard as we can. And we had this thing, if you are friends with me or whatever on Instagram, you can see we used to have Walking Wednesday, where I would get into an exoskeleton and I would be in the hallways of the hospital. And of course I would stand up and doctors and nurses would all be there because it's very impressive. And ooh, and I'd be like, I'll be back. You have to do that. And I would start walking. And this exoskeleton, and I know you just had a presentation and I don't know if she discussed this, but this exoskeleton that I was in had the ability to turn up or down the power. So I could use more power or it could be doing all the power. When I started, it was doing the power. It got to the point where I was doing so much, they said, we're gonna fit you for braces. Now, remember, I'm T12, so I'm up here. I'm not supposed to have abs, I'm not supposed to have anything, but I have worked and worked and worked. And one thing that a lot of people don't understand is that, and I didn't, when you become paralyzed, you think you just go numb. But as a lot of you know, the nerve pain is excruciating. And I had nerve pain here. Well, it started moving down, and as it moved, let me explain. I have a band, which is what I'm talking about. And even at this moment, my legs feel like they are in a tingly fire. But the band, when I touch it, Just touch it. It felt like a really bad sunburn that you accidentally scratch really hard on a good day. On a bad day, it feels like I'm in surgery and I've been woken up. But it kept moving down. And as it moved down, I was feeling. I'm now able to do those abs where you like lay down on the table and you have the medicine ball and you throw it as you sit up. Not supposed to be able to do that. But I get these braces that come up to here, and you know, I mean, we've just met, but you know me, right? I'm a complainer, and I do not put up with crap, and this thing is chafing me, and I can't have chafing because, hello. So I said, take that, it's annoying. So my therapist said, all right, well, we're gonna take it off. So now it's just KFOs. And he's like, I'm gonna need help. We have the walker, and he's like, all right, on 3, we're gonna stand up. I stood up, and they thought I was gonna collapse. And I stood there. And I looked at him, and he said, you know what's next? And I said, let's go. And that first day, I took 50 steps by myself. And I thought about it. When I was training in 50 meters, I would take 26 strokes. And I would swim in the morning about 8,000 meters. And at night, I would repeat the same. And I did that 6 days a week. And I thought to myself, how many strokes in my lifetime did I take? And not one of those strokes meant more to me than those steps. It had the same blood, sweat, tears, crying, and cussing that all those strokes had. But this was for my life. And I love America. I truly do. But it meant more than those gold medals. And I would take them all the way to be able to walk up that ramp. But I will tell you this, I will do it someday. I will be doing it very soon by myself because I work every single day to try to do something. I listen to that heavy metal music and I try to dance. Yes, to heavy metal music, I try to dance. It will happen someday. It'll be a thing. Remember that, you too. You and me, we got it. But one thing that I realized is that things are not as bad as they seem at the moment. I've got a tattoo on my wrist, it's a phoenix rising from the ashes. And for some, in my dilaudid coma, I asked for my EKG. So underneath the phoenix is my last wonky heart rate, and it goes into my normal sinus rhythm. Things can always be worse. So when you guys are having a bad day, and trust me, this industry, there are a lot of bad days. When you have got people who are not happy with you, when your boss is not happy with you, when you come home and you've got the spouse telling you, mine, you've got the kids like nipping at your heels, and it just seems like you can't do it anymore, and you're about ready to scream and freak out, what I want you to do is I want you to close your eyes. I want you, to think of me walking towards you, and I want you to look at me, and I want you to say as loud as you can, who are you to tell me what I can and can't do? And I want you guys to rock it out. Thank you.